Hi, and welcome to the Lulu Story podcast, where style meets soul, a place to inspire you on your own journey of becoming and self expression through conversations with inspiring women. We will uncover what it is to truly show up as yourself and the tricks and tips to build a wardrobe and style you love so you can feel at peace in your skin, be visible, and thrive as yourself. And on today's show, we have Natalie Barbos. Thanks, Natalie, for coming on.
Thank you, Lulu, for inviting me.
This today's conversation is really going to be taking the kind of idea of style being so much more holistic than just about the clothes that we're in, because you bring to this conversation so much information about what we should be eating. So please tell everyone what you do and what your kind of mission is in the world.
Yeah, of course. A holistic understanding of ourselves is definitely embedded into my job. So, I'm a registered nutritional therapist and I'm a functional medicine certified health coach. And I run a clinic. I'm director of a clinic called Integral Wellness. And our core element of focus is actually cardiometabolic health. But the behind that really is thinking about actually the way that we fuel our body is that metabolic side of health. How does the body actually extract nutrients and energy for fuel so that we can go about our day? And the cardiovascular part of that is very much about the transport. The vascular system is the motorways of the body to move nutrients and hydration through to each organ. So that's very much our focus area. And our approach is very much a holistic, individualized, personalized approach to health and nutrition, with appreciating not just actually what we eat, but also the way we live, the way we talk to ourselves, the way we think about ourselves, the environment we embed ourselves in. All these things are just as important as the food that we put inside our bodies. So, yes, I'm really entering this with that very holistic approach.
I love that. It's very in line with kind of my view of how we look after ourselves and the intrigue that we should have about how we can be our best selves. Tell me a little bit about how you got into this. What was it that kind of sparked this interest in nutrition?
Yeah, it's a good question. Actually, a lot of nutritionists end up into it because they themselves had an issue that got resolved through nutrition. Mine's a little bit different. I've always been sort of involved in sports and eating as best as money would allow throughout my life. But actually, the real turning point for me, I was working in a corporate career. I had sort of a decade as a marketeer in the financial technology industry. And it was working in that industry that actually was the catalyst for me moving into more of a passion. And it was really a case of seeing several things collide. So I was in my 20s working in that industry and I didn't feel great at all.
Mm.
I was exhausted all of the time, no matter how much I slept. I was over exercising in order to compensate for quite a poor diet. I was definitely drinking too much alcohol. I couldn't get through the afternoon without a packet of biscuits and a Dr. Pepper. Things like this, which in your 20s, you sort of feel like you're invincible, but
Oh,
actually I got to massively invincible. But I got to the latter part of my 20s and just thought, this is awful. Like I feel really terrible. I was newly married. I thought I really shouldn't feel this bad. And I felt so disconnected with my body. I had 3 different clothes sizes in my wardrobe because I just didn't know how my body was going to show up for me each day. I couldn't risk not having a few different clothes sizes to wear. And I looked around as well at my colleagues, and it was really clear that none of us actually felt very well.
yeah.
There was popping of pills and, paracetamol and Berocca, and yet we were still going out and drinking that night, and no one was sleeping very well, and the stress was intense. And these two things came together at the same time as it was really apparent how the NHS was under so much pressure, chronic diseases and chronic conditions, particularly things which I really like to work with people on, which is their blood sugars, type 2 diabetes, blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart conditions, things like that, weight loss. That became such a pressure point and such a budgetary impact for the NHS. And I just thought, well, no wonder, because look at how we're treating
Yeah.
ourselves. Me, the answer was so obvious in front of my face. So it wasn't really me who got diagnosed with anything that led to it. It was really the whole environment I was swimming in. I just thought, no wonder as a country, our health is just not doing well at all. And I decided I couldn't see myself in that industry forever. I sort of fell into it anyway. couldn't see myself in that industry forever, but I could see myself going back to an act of service, which is very aligned with being a Virgo. If anybody's up for zodiac signs, I'm a Virgo. I'm a manifesting generator as a human design. And acts of service really align deeply with my values. And I thought, I'm going to go and retrain, and I'm going to bring my passion in of thinking about your lifestyle, doing things as naturally as possible, really leaning in on remembering why we eat food in the first place, and actually helping people to improve their quality of life more than anything. And that's where I find myself today, and I love it.
Amazing. I mean, I think the fact that you haven't had a very specific illness, that, really means that you do speak to the challenges that so many people have. And as we're speaking, the thought that came to my head was that the other day, my husband and I were watching something. I'm trying to think what it was on television. Anyway, there was adverts. It must have maybe been on Prime or something. The adverts literally one after the other. It was like takeaways. Then it was Pepto Bismol.
They're
We need to
generally,
do together. And Steve and I, we're just like, maybe there's something else here that's going on, and we don't need the
yeah.
Pepto-Bismol. So do you think that, what would you say when people come to you is, obviously everyone's so individual, but what would you say is the general feeling that people have when they come to you? Is there something, a
Yeah.
common thread, or, common things that come up?
A common thing that come up is people are so lost. People are
Mm.
so confused, and I don't blame them either. We've got an internet, I should say, full of various websites, all saying different things, trying to address the same question with 27 different answers. And people get really confused. And this is where the nuance of nutrition is. And nutritional science is the same as medical science. It's an applied science. So we have to apply it to an individual based on a strong hypothesis, based on a strong understanding of what that individual's challenges and drivers are. And we have to see how it works for them and hear the feedback. That is just medical health science, and nutritional science is no different. With that, it does make things like answering one question in a black and white term, it's just not possible. And it's the world, I love to live in the world of nuance, and I love to add context and tell people where the caveats are in my answering. But so often, and I get it, because we are so tired, exhausted, fatigued from how we feel, confused, we go on the internet, we can't get a straight answer, and we feel deeply frustrated. And I really understand that. We don't have good nutrition education in the schools or in colleges or anything like that. The NHS education is generally 10 years behind where the science is, because of the amount of process it has to go through in order to become policy. Even their food plate, the last time it was updated was 2016.
Wow.
It's so out of date. I'm really not surprised people are confused, and that's generally what we hear and see. And then the other side of that we see is that when they go to try and get answers, when they go to their GP to sort of say, I don't feel particularly well, or this, that, and the other, either they can't see their GP, the GP won't do blood tests because they had them a year ago and there was nothing wrong, and it just doesn't warrant the spend. And that doesn't feel great for someone being told that they're not worth the spend to find out what's wrong with them. Or if they do blood tests, they just say you're normal and they send you away, even though your problem and how you feel remains. And I feel like we have lost the care aspects of healthcare, and it is because of the pressure that the NHS are under. It's not a simple scenario. It's not easy to fix. I'm glad I'm not at the helm fixing it. But that's what a lot of people are saying, is that I can't find the answers myself because I'm confused. I go to the GP and don't get the answers. I literally don't know where I'm meant to turn. And that's why I'm so grateful to do the job that we do and open the doors to be able to walk with somebody hand in hand for several months to really look deep at what's been driving their issues and how are they going to make realistic, long-standing changes to have a better quality of life. And that's always the goal, is a better quality of life for that individual, because everybody's going to need different things.
Wonderful. And I love really how supportive it sounds, the support that you're giving people. What do you think people most misunderstand about their diet and nutrition? What kind of themes do you see coming up over and over?
I definitely think, and this comes up whether I'm speaking to somebody as an individual, whether my team's speaking to somebody, or whether we're presenting to a larger audience. What comes up time and time again is the mindset that we have around food. And I really think we've massively lost the understanding of why we bother to eat food in the first place. Like, genuinely, when you were last doing your online shop or pushing your trolley around the supermarket, did you look at a piece of food and understand the benefit that was going to give the body? Or did you just tick it off of the shopping list because that needs to go with that meal and that's what everyone's eating on Wednesday night? The disconnect, I think, is very apparent, and a big part of what we love to do, me and the team at Integral Wellness within the clinic, is reconnect people with the food that they're eating, with the nature and environment that is providing that food, and with themselves, the people where the body that food is going into. And that brings full circle the reason, well, why we're bothering in the first place. Food is, at the very core of it, information, communication, and a toolkit for the body to live on. We do not eat well, there's no toolkit and there's no quality communication happening, and the body's going to become very challenged and confused, and we're going to feel the effects. Same as going in a tool bag and realizing that, you know, the screwdriver that you had, suddenly the end's fallen off. You can't use it anymore. If we don't feed our bodies well, if we don't actually put the right nutrients into our bodies, then our body can't operate and function in the way that we're demanding of it. If we're fair, our lives are hard work, it seems, these days. If we demand so much of our bodies and our minds, we've got to feed the body to enable it to keep up. And I think we've lost that understanding around food, and it's become much more about I've got to do it, the kids are hungry, it's that time of day, I'm going out for dinner with a friend, and we don't actually think about the genuine nutrition and point of that food in the first place, and the point that those choices make.
So interesting, and I love your perspective on it and angle on it, and it's really making. Hi everyone, it is Lulu's Story, and I hope you're enjoying this episode. But I just wanted to jump on and say that I am a style coach working with women every day to help them understand themselves better, to reclaim their identity and know how to step forward into their lives with confidence, clarity. And if you're struggling, please don't struggle any further. Get in touch. I have availability for words consultations, and I have a waiting list for one-to-one client work. So if you'd like to join that waiting list, then do check out the show notes below and we can add you to that and book in a call as when I have availability. All right, back to the show. We come back to something I did in the summer, which was I think I feel like we maybe spoke about this. I did the human being diet in the
Yes.
summer and had to strip out everything. I was just on protein and veg with no fats, obviously no sugar, no alcohol, nothing like that for 2 weeks. And it really helped, well, made me connect with what, number one, how grateful I was to have that tiny amount of food on my plate. And number two, at the end of that fortnight, when I started to introduce things back into my body and trying dairy and trying beans and trying, you suddenly had this connection with your body. You know, I would have said before doing that, I was pretty connected. But, you know, it really helped me to go, oh no, that actually makes me feel really bloated. Or for me, I've got mild asthma, but like as soon as I have a bit of sugar, I'm wheezy straight away
Yeah.
after. And I've like now started to notice these things. I mean, obviously that's quite an extreme way of maybe doing it, but for people that are thinking, okay, yeah, I really don't even start thinking about what I'm putting in, and I'm maybe just feeling my emotions, or I'm feeling, is there like a question or a process or, you know, a tip that you could offer that would help people just begin that journey of self-awareness?
Yeah, I think so. And thank you for sharing your story with that as well. I think that exactly what you say there in regards to, you suddenly find this gratitude for food and you suddenly start really sitting back and thinking about, how did that genuinely make me feel?
Mm.
And I'm glad you shared that, because so much of the issues we have is that we're rushing through life and that meals are an inconvenience. Gosh, I've got to cook dinner. No, what a terrible thing that we've got to feed the body that we've been asking to work hard all day. You know,
It's a
we've got
good
to check.
reframe, Natalie, because I'm not going to lie, I do enjoy my husband doing the cooking and me not having to.
Well, I don't mind who does the cooking. I love it when my husband cooks too, but we have got to reframe that as, actually, do you know what? I've asked so much of my body today. Let me make sure I give it the nutrition back that it needs. And those reframes can be really helpful. It might not overcome the tough day that you've had, but I think they are really helpful in the first place. But I think actually, especially to connect with what you've just said there, just slow down. In the first instant, slow down that mealtime. Put your phone down, turn the TV off, maybe engage with the people around you, or simply, and you might think I'm mad, sit in silence and eat your food and listen to your body and chew really well and look at that plate of food and think about it. Think about the nourishment it's giving you and why you've put that together in the first place. And could you have made different choices? Some of the stuff's going to be really obvious. You might sit down with chips and fish fingers, and you could probably sit there and say to myself, could have added some peas to that to liven this plate up a little bit. Or you might sit down with steak and veg, and the question might be, gosh, I really wanted to swallow that steak and I'd barely chewed it.
Mm.
Gosh, I'd never been aware that I was barely chewing my food before. Super common because we're all in a rush and we're all thinking of other things. And the moment we just slow down and reconnect with our plate, we chew more, we think about what's on the plate more, we think about how maybe we could change it up a little bit next time, or what did we like, what would we repeat? And that really is the starting process of whatever else needs to come for you as an individual that would unravel over time. Nothing has to change overnight, but that simple act and doing that more frequently will lead to so many amazing changes.
I love that. We've actually got a friend who, and I don't know anyone else who does it, but guaranteed when he is given some food, he smells it.
Okay,
So
yeah,
he
yeah.
will literally like lift the plate up,
At the plate.
he takes it all in. And I've honestly never seen anyone else do it with such, and he does it with such joy.
Oh, that's so nice. Yeah, such appreciation. Yeah.
And I
We have
definitely,
food abundance these days, don't we?
yeah,
We have food abundance. It's on every street corner. It's easy to grab and go. There was a time when that wasn't the case. Who knows if there's a time in the future when that's not going to be the case?
yeah,
So it's really lovely to see that true appreciation for our food.
it really is. What do you think is the most common bit of advice you give, or the most common swap or something you remove? You know, people are thinking, all right, I want to make those healthier choices. Is it just about eating less, calorie counting? Is it just about, I don't know, removing the sugar? What is it that you often find is, something that is a good place to begin, taking action and changes?
Yeah, I mean, it does depend on the individual as to what I would say, but I will throw something out there and just appreciate if it doesn't land for, whoever's listening. There might be a different version of it. I know it's said so many times, but genuinely leaning in on your diet being mainly whole foods can make a massive difference. I was presenting yesterday, and after I'd finished presenting and everyone had been talked about food, I then said, next time you go into the supermarket, work out how many aisles you don't need to go down. Because it's quite interesting how many aisles in the supermarket I would never need to visit. They hold nothing for me. Don't go down the crisp aisle. Don't need to go down the cereal aisle. I don't need to go down the alcohol aisle necessarily. There's so many different aisles that you think there's actually nothing down there for me. Or maybe there's only one item. That's a really interesting bit. To do that, you have to start with thinking about, actually, if I was to look at my cupboard, how much whole food am I relying on? And we're talking about what grows in the ground, what swims in the sea, what walks on the land, or what comes from something that does. So an egg or dairy. They're your whole foods. And if you were to separate that from everything that's been pushed through a factory and then start to see how you can navigate the divide to being more whole foods and less packaged foods, appreciating that lentils and beans come in packets, of course, that can be the easiest way to move into a more nutrient dense food across the week, and does stop us from isolating foods and going, is it sugar? Is it salt? Is it pasta? It stops us from isolating food groups and actually just thinking about going closer to nature and the original way that food is being produced.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a big swap. I have to say, I'm guilty of having a 10-year-old, we try
Yeah.
and, make the chicken nuggets rather than buying them, but, you can't always get it perfect. So I suppose it's finding that balance of, how can what are maybe the easy things that I can do that are whole foods that I can maybe batch cook, or, easy recipes that I can always lean into. Or for me at this time of year, it's always having a soup,
Yeah.
ready to
Yeah.
go. Because my favorite thing at the moment is actually on the back of the coconut flour packet. There's a banana bread recipe, and I do that. And so it's got like
Yeah.
5 eggs in it, So again, this morning I was in a rush, so I had 2 slices of that, and it just a lot means that I'm not having, grabbing the toast or grabbing the bread, which really can inflame me. My body is so sensitive to sugar and wheat and all that stuff, and in some ways, the asthma has helped me actually be attuned to it, and often I think that it can feel frustrating when we've got these intolerances, but the gift in it is that it forces us to really listen in. The same with, I think,
Yeah.
when I'm helping people get dressed, the body shapes that are a bit more challenging, it can feel frustrating, but on the other hand, it actually helps you to tune into yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that example of thinking about actually what are we intolerant to, but whether there's an intolerance or not, that helps to shine a light and go, oh, actually, I realize how much better I feel when I don't do that. Most people, as they move towards whole foods, no one's perfect, right? You'll have that moment where you go, oh, I'm just going to go and have that takeaway. It's a Friday night. I'm knackered.
Yeah.
I'm going to have that takeaway. The amount of feedback I get that was a regular for me. I've had it once and I've not had it for a few months.
Mm.
I really have realized how that was part of how I felt, but I needed to not do that for a while to appreciate it. That's humans. Like, please don't think that that makes you anything special or daft because you didn't know. We all have to receive that reminder. And it is about navigating closer to whole foods and away from those foods. And then when we do have them, because no one's immune to not having them, really listening in for how did that genuinely feel? And therefore, how often do you want to keep doing that? Or do you want to continue navigating on the path of whole foods? And it's making that individual choice for you, for your family, for the setup that you've got, and going with it as far as feels good for you.
Yeah.
Because everybody's health and everybody's quality of life is very individual to them.
And I'm sure creating a new base level for yourself of
Yeah,
what,
absolutely.
I find that even like my metabolism can manage things more than it actually probably used to. It has more flexibility than it did before me doing this reset.
Absolutely.
And it's meant that I can now, that I know I'm going out. So there's a pizza party tonight, I'm going out to it. But I've been very mindful, especially the last few days, that I've been more on my veg, more healthy to
Yeah.
then balance that. But it means I can then process it better than I used to be able to do.
Absolutely. And when you and I worked together, Lulu, you didn't have to battle with 3 different dress sizes in my wardrobe.
No.
I wear one size. I know, actually, I'd never get on the scales because I don't need to, because nothing changes, because nothing needs to change.
Yeah.
My body, I know how it's going to behave when I wake up in the morning. And that, I think, especially for women, but I know men aren't immune to this either.
Mhm.
It has a massive impact on our day. When our body isn't showing up, when we don't feel our body showing up for us, when it's doing things that we don't understand, when we're bloated or the trousers don't fit again, but they did 2 weeks ago, it gets deeply frustrating. It really ingrains in our psyche and our mood. I really felt that throughout my 20s constantly, and getting married around that age was really stressful because I didn't know which pants do I need to wear on my wedding day? Do I need to suck me in, or do I need a full like bodysuit? Like, what am I going to need? It's my wedding day. So stressful. And I don't have that. I'm older than I was then. We've been married 10 years. I'm older than I was then. And my body and me are better, like best friends in
Yeah.
comparison to the battle that we had back then. But it absolutely started with understanding why it was behaving that in the first place and making changes through diet and lifestyle. And yeah, as I
I
say, I
love
don't
that.
need
I
to.
love that. Creating that best friend connection with your body and like really looking after. And I remember, I think you said something on Instagram the other day about, if your body was a car and you knew it was you're gonna have to drive it forever, how would you look after it? Which made me think I need to look after my car better. But I love I love that analogy, and I think it's so important because I see so many women that are really fighting their bodies all the
Yeah.
time, and I think there's a two-prong attack. Obviously I come from the angle of, right, well, let's know it so that we can dress it and love it. But hopefully by loving it better, we then want to feed it better and
Yeah.
care for it more. And obviously in the summer, you and I work together. Thank you for bringing that up. You're looking resplendent in that gorgeous, that little me and
It is. It's
yeah.
the little H&M
Oh,
cashmere vest. I would not have bought it if it wasn't for you, Lulu. I would have
it's,
convinced myself out of it, but you definitely gave me the
look at
confidence
that
to.
color on you. You look
Thank you.
breathtaking in it, and it's functional as well, which is what we
Yeah.
love. And I can keep coming up with all the mirroring kind of links between food and style, but you know it must have felt, well, tell us the experience of going into that wardrobe, a bit like opening the cupboards of all the food.
Yeah.
really letting go of, we really went through and we did a big edit with your wardrobe. How was that
It was a
experience for you?
massive edit. What was it, 6 bin bags
Yeah.
in the end? It was huge. And actually, I'm glad you talked about that alignment between opening up the wardrobe and opening up, like, the cupboards or the pantry or
Mhm.
wherever food is kept, because it's really easy to be immediately worried about judgment. What's somebody gonna think? What I've not been looking after myself. I know there are things in here that there shouldn't be. But we're also caught up in confusion that we couldn't have made choices ourselves, so we've brought somebody else in to help us navigate that. The truth is there is no judgment. When you pick the right person to work with, there is no judgment, and I knew there wasn't for you. But it had got to a point where my wardrobe didn't make sense to me anymore. There was so much in it, so much, and I couldn't work out what to wear. And I couldn't work out what really looked good on me versus what didn't look so good, and there were things that I'd never worn, but I bought because I saw someone else look good in it. So I thought if I suddenly wore it, I'd look like them or the silly things we tell ourselves.
Mm.
And it was about me realigning with who I am as a person and thinking about, and you can do this exactly the same with your food cupboard. Who do I want to be?
Mm.
How do I want to feel in my body and my clothes each day? And what does that look like? And I couldn't work that out on my own. I needed your help to help me navigate that. It's so much more fun when you have a pal and a tag team and you can partner up and do it with someone. It's really hard to expect to sometimes answer these big questions on your own, but it really helped me. And you also really helped me to see things in different ways. I knew that my styling, I think I called myself a plain Jane.
Yes, I was like, "No, you're not."
Felt so plain. I felt so plain and so dull. I mean, it might have something to do with the fact that my favourite material is denim. I feel super grounded in denim, which is one of my words. But I
Yeah,
felt like I didn't
tell everyone
have,
your words. Do you know them?
yeah, so grounded, sophisticated, and strong.
Great words.
And that actually didn't I didn't understand why my words would be so important
Mm.
until we'd really landed on my words and I'd sat with them for a while. And then it made so much sense when it comes to shopping and desire to buy things unnecessarily. Actually, if they're not connecting with those words, it's so easy to just walk away and say no. And so the lack of shopping or the lack of unnecessary shopping has definitely dropped. Whereas I'm buying much more purposeful items that genuinely give me a lot of joy. I did buy the Beaufort and Blake sheep jumper you might have
Oh,
seen. And
good.
I know I'd looked at it since last year and I looked at it with so much love and the price wasn't quite right. And I thought I'll wait till this year. And then when it hit the sort of Black Friday sales, I thought that it just brings me so much joy. It does
Mhm.
feel grounded, felt very sophisticated because of the style of knit and the way that it had been done and the tone of the colours. And it felt really strong because I'm wearing a sheep on my
Yeah,
jumper, which makes my husband go, "What are you doing?"
yeah. It made you
I
feel
felt
bad for
bold.
yourself.
Yeah, I loved it. And it is that ability to make those decisions with such confidence now, rather than just, constantly leaving the tab open going, do I, don't
Yeah.
I? I'm just able to execute either in or out with complete ease and not think about it again. And I'm grateful for that because
Mhm.
that gives me more headspace as
Mm.
well. My wardrobe makes sense now.
Mm.
Everything has purpose, everything has several purposes. All the colors work for me as well. Yeah, I'm so grateful for clearing out the clutter and
You did really well because there was definite bits that you were like wanting to hold on to, and then you're like, you know what? Why am I clinging on to this? And I think it's quite interesting around the psychology of like, all these changes that you've just said about, things you can implement with your diet and taking, an interest in listening in and all this stuff. But often with all of this, the thing that underpins it all is our chimp brain, our emotions, our upbringing, all these things that are psychological. And it's all very well to say, well, make these changes with your diet or make these changes with your wardrobe. But it can be so hard at times to shift yourself into a new gear or on a new road. And I do think, and it'd be interesting maybe for you to reflect on like your words, how they keep you aligned with your health and your diet and your nutrition. Because for me, it has really, like my elegant word has really helped me. It makes me think of my gran and how she cared for herself, her portion sizes and her, her doing her exercise every morning. it reminds me of that is how I care for myself. So even if I don't feel motivated enough, my identity and who I want to be is strong enough. So I can then kind of pivot myself or pull myself into those right decisions or be
That.
cool enough to forgive myself if I made the wrong decision. So how do your words support you in your decisions?
I love that. I love that you said that because there's a massive link with the actions that we take based on emotions. So I talk about this a lot with food being an act of self-care.
Yeah.
Actually, that doesn't mean that buying the chocolate bar because I need it, that's not the self-care act. That's totally emotions driven, and that won't solve the problem behind the emotions. Doesn't mean to say whether you should or shouldn't do it, but let's be fair about what is true behind that. Same with I needed to spend £200 in Zara to make me feel better. No, it wasn't not spending £200 in Zara that was making you feel bad in the first place. We've just plastered over a difficult, uncomfortable emotion. And they're not easy to unpick all the time. But if we can speak a little bit more transparently about the emotion behind decisions, it will begin to help. And if you get things like the words that you work with people on, like you've worked with me on, grounded, sophisticated, and strong, you're absolutely right. They can then begin to feed out through other areas of your life.
Mhm.
So grounded for me is such an important word. As you know, I'm moving to
I
Scotland.
know.
And a big part of that is because I'm actually from the South Coast, but I don't feel particularly aligned with living there. I feel very family orientated there, but that's not for me anymore. Whereas the mountains and feeling hugged, we're going to be living in a valley and I'm literally going to be hugged by the mountains. That makes me feel so grounded, so rooted, which gives me an element of safety. Also, really connects me to the soil. I never knew that as a nutritionist I was going to suddenly geek out on soil, but I do because if the soil's not good enough, then the food we grow isn't great. And the whole animal ecosystem that feeds into that is so fascinating for me. So, grounded for me really goes back to roots and really goes back to where did the food come from and what's the quality of it. And that does bleed slightly into the sophistication because I get a little bit geeky on it. But the sophistication is also the way that I treat the meal and think about, oh, actually, what herbs and spices can I bring in here? And can I add some ferments or can I top it with some sprouts or some nuts and seeds? Like, how do I just add a little bit extra to add that sophistication? And in my new house, I'm going to be all crockery new set and my table's going to be gorgeous. I'm sophisticated on the table plan too. And then the strong is actually the whole reason behind why those first two things matter.
Yeah.
Where did the food come from and how am I bringing it together on my plate is because of the strength that I want in my body and my mind to climb those mountains when I'm 80 years old, because that's my ambition. We have a beautiful hill up behind us. And to me, that my ambition is always to, as I age, is to forever walk up that hill every single day and make sure that I have strength in me. But that comes from the food that we eat and the way that we live. So, yeah, I'm so pleased you asked that because it does bleed in so beautifully, not only into the way I dress, but the way I eat.
But I love the analysis of it. It makes my heart really warm and full. And I think what is, it's all very well when this is your passion and this is something you're particularly good at and you built it into your habits. But we've all got these areas in our life where, whether it's nutrition or exercise or I don't know, stepping out and achieving your dreams, whatever it is, there's parts that you kind of pull back from. And I love
Mm.
that, somebody could maybe use their words to kind of help them make those healthier choices and help them to look after themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. I want to just dive a bit more into the style thing because, this is a style podcast.
Yeah,
I want
tell
to
me.
ask you, let's go back to little Natalie. Is there an item of clothing that you first had or wore and you remember just thinking you felt so special in it, you felt so much like yourself? Is there anything that comes to mind?
The me- It's so funny. There's a few, but the main one that comes to mind is actually made of denim. And we used to call pedal pushers.
Oh yeah. Loved a pedal pusher.
Exactly.
Still have a
Exactly.
pair. Yeah.
Oh my God, you know what a pedal pusher is? It was a pair of denim pedal pushers. And we didn't grow up, we grew up quite poor actually. And getting a pair of denim pedal pushers took some time. And then we had to go to Adams. Adams was the shop. But we went to get them, and yeah, because I think it took a little while to get them. It wasn't an instant thing that we could get as a purchase for me as a family. I think that made them so special, but I felt so good in them because they were on trend.
Mm.
When you don't grow up with much money, you don't wear much on trend. You're getting a lot of experienced clothing handed down to you. but they were special because they were new, they were on trend, and I just felt great in them. So, yeah, absolutely, it has to go to the pedal pushers.
I loved a pedal pusher. I bought a pair recently and I've been wearing them, and I do with a heel nowadays,
Nice.
going out in an oversized shirt. I still think it's so chic.
Yeah.
But yeah, oh, I love the pedal pusher. I love that that was your answer. That is. And what about now? What's your favorite item apart from? Is it going to be the sheep jumper? Do you think?
The sheep jumper might take over in time. I definitely find the sheep jumper for me is very comforting when I'm almost needing a hug from a jumper. That jumper's the chunk of the knit, the collar, the fact there's some playfulness with the sheep, that really does work for me. It's great quality. I don't know whether it's that or whether, but now, thanks to you as well, I've got so many beautiful items of cashmere that actually really lean into that sophistication and that strength for those words. But the cashmere as the material still keeps me quite grounded. And
It
then I'm
makes that fabric makes. I mean, I just think it is so
gorgeous.
lovely, and it's so light. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it is one of my favorite fabrics. It makes me feel very special when I wear it. So let
And then I'm
me.
an absolute sucker for a bit of denim. I love a good quality denim shirt.
So my next question to you, Natalie, is really I want us to bring us up to kind of speed with the times. And there is no denying right now that there is so much talk and use of, diet jabs like Ozempic, Monjaro. I've actually got a few clients I know who have really been struggling with their weight over the years, menopause, and have found it incredibly helpful. But I'm wondering from your standpoint, where do you stand on it and kind of what advice can you give?
Yeah, I'm glad you bring it up. It is really topical in my world, and actually, I feel in everybody's world, because I don't think we've ever so openly talked about taking a drug the way that people are so openly talking about taking these drugs. And there you've got Ozempic, Mounjaro, Wegovy. There's new ones coming out, but they are all GLP-1 drugs. Most of them in injectable form, but some do come in tablet form as well. As I feel with most medications, there will always be a percentage of the population where the medication is actually really important for their health needs and their health goals. In that scenario, understanding the side effects of those medication also becomes equally important in my world. And for us as a clinic, for me as a nutritionist and my team, we're really looking at supporting and helping the people that are on those medications, helping them to manage and mitigate against the side effects, because there is a concerning list of side effects and some do not stop after the medication is stopped. And that I think is really important, because I think at the moment my biggest worry with these medications is driving things such as the loss of somebody's gallbladder. So with the slowing down of the emptying of the stomach, which helps to keep satiety for longer, which is where a lot of people are sort of reducing the food noise and they're really getting quite good relief from that. That positive can come also with a potential negative, and not everyone's going to have this, which is the fact that that slowing down also slows down the gallbladder motility. The gallbladder really needs to move and have motility in order to release bile salts, otherwise they get more and more conjugated and concentrated, and they become stones, and then we get a gallbladder full of stones, and then we lose the gallbladder. And you can survive without several organs in the body, the gallbladder, having part of your thyroid removed, spleens, things like that, your appendix. But it doesn't mean that the body functions as well without it, even though you can still live. So that sort of thing concerns me. The rise in things like pancreatitis, particularly when doses get increased quite quickly. And again, there's a little bit of an approach with some medics or prescribers where it is a case of you start here and you get here by month 3, without thinking about, actually, if I do really well at the lower dose, I should just stay at the lower dose. That can increase things like pancreatitis, which then puts pressure on the pancreas and potentially causes longer term damage, and for some people quite hospitalizing concerns. Changes in the microbiome, I think, are still very unknown. There's a lot of cases around loss of eyesight at the moment, which really concerns me. I know Robbie Williams was in the news recently talking about he's losing his eyesight because of the drugs, but for his own personal reasons, he's choosing to take the drug still. All these things, if anything, if the drug is important for that person, which some drugs are, let's do what we can to mitigate against the side effects. And let's make sure, importantly, that with such a loss of appetite, you don't become nutrient depleted in the process, because that's not going to help anything. And I think this is where the flip side of it comes from, where if you don't need this drug, is it worth any of those risks? And actually, are we just looking at someone as being smaller, meaning that they're healthier, which is a complete misunderstanding of body size connected to health. Because if we are smaller because of the drug, but our microbiome is now in a poor place, our pancreas has been a little bit unhappy, we've lost our gallbladder, maybe our muscle mass has dropped as well, and bone density loss is also a risk. And we haven't been eating very much because we haven't got much appetite and we're quite nutrient depleted. We are not healthier no matter how many dress sizes we have lost. And that's what I really want to support people in mitigating against, whether they want to avoid taking the drug in the first place or they're taking it and they want to come off it at some point. I want to help them with that aspect of it, because just because you're smaller does not mean you are healthier. And everyone deserves to be happy in their body, but let's make sure you're happy from the inside out and not just the external appearance without any consideration for what's going on deeper.
It's really interesting to hear all you share. And I think, like you say, it's a very nuanced subject and that, for everyone, it's very personal. I wonder if a big part of it, going again back to the kind of psychological side of things, is, when someone's not been able to rev the engine and get it started or get that weight loss happening or have the discipline or be able to override the emotions, um, they then lose a lot of trust in themselves and their ability to make those changes and like needing to then rely on, the medication to make those changes.
Yeah.
I wonder if then there's a part where there's probably a point where it's right now it's time to come off the medication. But again, that trust isn't there to think, well, can I do it by myself? If somebody
Yeah.
is in that situation, is that where you would be a helpful person to kind of come in and help them, or what would you recommend to help them with the self belief?
Yeah, that's really well raised and a really important point with what actually created this scenario for that individual in the first place. Is it I've done 10,000 diets and none of them have worked? Is it I just can't stop myself from eating? Is it what is it? Without judgment, what is it? And actually understanding the drivers that got to that position in the first place is so important for whatever the future is going to look like. We can't just allow medication to override if actually there's a lot of emotional turmoil, if there's a lot of nervous system dysregulation. We've got to understand that. If there's actually just complete misunderstanding of nutrition and we're eating things that we think should work, but they're not filling us up and therefore we will overeat, well, actually, let's just get your nutrition in a better place. And most of our clients find, gosh, I actually don't need any more snacks. And wow, I can't believe how much I'm not hungry after dinner anymore. And I'm sleeping so much better, which makes me feel better the next day. But they didn't know some of these things beforehand. So it's very much a case of we're all coaches at Integral Wellness. It's very much working on the behavior change, the positive psychology aspect, the unpicking of what brought them to that place. Maybe it's important to also see somebody that's maybe trauma informed or a psychotherapist alongside us, but we really shouldn't pretend that that doesn't exist. We all know what it is to comfort eat.
Yeah.
We all know that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't not having that food
Mm.
that led to difficult emotion in the first place. Something else led to that emotion, and the food is trying to take away the pain. With food, with shopping, with addiction of any sort of type, it's not about the food.
No, it's not. And
Emotion that leads to that action.
yeah, and I think even a lot of like people who are dysregulated, that I work with so many people who are neurodivergent or I
Yeah.
suspect are, neurodivergence gets inflamed in or kind of really comes to the surface in menopause. And so therefore there's also that understanding that I suppose the dysregulation within yourself. And I found it fascinating for me. I can really tell when I'm dysregulated because my diet goes out the window. I also found it really fascinating how sensitive, even just understanding that if I had an apple after dinner, but fruit after my dinner, I would get hungrier sooner. So when I was doing that stripped out diet, I was like, I can't even eat that fruit spikes it too much for me.
Interesting. So interesting, isn't it, that journey that you've gone
So
on?
fascinating for people to really like. It is very personal, but don't. I think the message I want to get out is like again with style. There's no shame to be had, is there?
None at all, no, and you said this earlier about actually finding some kindness for you when you are having a tough time of it.
Yeah.
100%. This isn't about, well, you know why that's happening, so why aren't you doing it? Not at all. We're all human. None of us are immune, whether we're trained as nutritionists or not, none of us are immune to having tough times that leads to that ice cream or whatever it is, or that, I've bought so much from Zara that I didn't actually need. None of us are immune to that. But there's finding greater understanding and awareness in yourself actually brings a whole load of kindness. a lot of different changes and self-care aspects that we've talked about, with how you dress, how you talk to yourself, how you look in the mirror, how you feed yourself, but also that when the day just doesn't go as you expected and our behaviors maybe play out in a way that we wish they wouldn't, we're just really kind to ourselves off the back of that, and just appreciate that we are just human and we're all just a work in progress and we're all just learning as we go.
Well, I think that is a beautiful place to end. I absolutely love that. Self compassion is not a muscle that a lot of people have. But I think the more that we can lean into that, I really, really support it. I can't believe how much time has passed with this podcast. There's been so much to talk about. I think you radiate expertise, you radiate your words. Thank you for bringing your wisdom to the show. Do you want to let everyone know how they can find you and how they can get in contact?
Yes, of course. And thank you so much for having me on and having this conversation. I really hope it's been of value to those who listen. My clinic is Integral Wellness, so integralwellness.co.uk. You can find me on Instagram at NatalieLouise_Integral Wellness. You can find us at the same Integral Wellness Clinic name on Facebook, and you can find just me and my name on LinkedIn as well.
Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you, Lulu.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's podcast. We want to spread the word far and wide. So can you share this or send this episode on to a friend? Or perhaps you would like to check out some of the other episodes that we have recorded recently. I have done some fantastic ones about body shape with Anna Barkley. I spoke recently with the founder of a huge fashion brand, Aunt in America, who has recently become a medium about the link between spirituality and style. I have also had the privilege of speaking with Anna Cascarina about how to unlock your forever wardrobe. So whatever you're struggling with, we are developing a really great selection of episodes for you. So do go back into the archive and find something else you might love. If you have any other suggestions on who we should interview next, then do get in touch and let us know. I'll put the email address in the show notes. And also, you can find me on Instagram at lulustory_stylist. You can also find me on Substack, where we have a whole host of amazing ways of supporting you, whether that's our monthly Q&A with how to maximize your wardrobe, or seasonal workshops to help you transition into the season. I'm always here to support you on your style journey in life and becoming the woman that you know is within. So please get in touch in all those places. And if I can be of help to you and your style, then do not hesitate. Your time is now.